Welcome to the Institute of African American Males. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe.
All right, we're going to start off with thinking about consciousness duality. Okay. Now, everyone see the images really good? All right, so what we have here on the top, on the right-hand side, we have these gentlemen repeated all the way through there. Killmonger, and T'Challa. And thinking about consciousness, I'm going to get right into it. So, in Egypt, a long time ago, in a place far, far away, land called Kemet, we have folks who, for better lack of a term, we'll say that they worship. But I think a more appropriate term is what their focus was, what their mind was. So you've heard of Set and Horus, which in a better way to describe is light and dark, right? Set and Horus, light and dark, the two extremes, right? So the priests of ancient Egypt, they would wear masks of either Set or Horus, or you may have heard Ra, you may have heard Isis, you may have heard Bath. Bath, by the way, is a cat god, which is a representation that they use in the Black Panther movie, right? And also the comic books. That's reflected all the way through. They wore masks, right? So, long story short, Set versus Horus. There was a guy, Ra, he was a king. Set conspired against him, murdered him because he was jealous. Okay. Horus helped, along with his mother Isis, resurrect him from the dead. And together, Set and Horus wind up defeating a snake god called Apis. Right? Apis is really important. So what I'm focusing on is throughout stories around the world, there's duality between two forces, a good and a bad, right? There's a Cain and Abel, good versus evil. That's complete all the way around the world. So Set and Horus, Cain and Abel, good versus evil. But what's important is to remember the Set and Horus united to defeat the Apis. Now, Apis is the snake god, right? It's a snake, right? Snake represents evil. But from a psychological perspective, serpent represents the really down deep nature of us. When humans, however many thousands of years ago, when we lived out in the woods or the jungle or wherever we were, that there were reptiles trying to eat us. So there's an instinctive reaction towards snakes. And it's been studied many times, and it's been replicated, studies have been replicated with different folks. There is an instinctive, not taught, there's an instinctive apprehension towards snakes. Now what's interesting about that, you also have the snake in the Garden of Eden. You also have dragons. And interestingly enough, in Eastern European thought perspectives around mythology, the dragon represents something that needs to be defeated. It's negative. In Asia, the dragon represents something that you can aspire to. Right? But in both instances, the snake represents what can happen when you combine your higher self and your lower self. When you can balance your higher and your lower, your two dualities, and you stand in the middle, that's where you find your focus. So what else do we have about the snake? We have the Garden of Eden. We also have the conch. Some people said that there was a quince, quince. And then some people say that there was an apple in the garden, but there was a tree. So it's trees, snakes, all of those things are represented all the way around the world. So you're like, well, so what? So we have Set and Horus, good and evil, then you have the snake, right? So the higher and lower self unite, combine, and they can defeat evil. Everyone following so far? Okay. Now, there was a guy who you may have heard of before. His name was Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud had this concept in his mind, and he wrote about frequently. he talked about the id, the ego, and the superego. Well, you may have heard of those two terms before. So you have the id on the one side, okay? You have the ego in the middle, all right? And you have the superego on the other side. Another guy comes along a little bit later named Carl Jung, and Jung has something very similar. He has the subconscious, the conscious, and the collective conscious. Okay? And so Set, Horus, and Apis, id, ego, superego, the subconscious, the conscious, and the collective unconscious, all of those things are very similar. And that comes out of thought, trying to figure out what is consciousness. And so when we think about what is consciousness, why these three concepts are important is that good and evil, Set and Horus, unconscious, conscious, super unconscious, collective unconscious, all of those things combine in the middle to find out who we are. And thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you. So I'm not going too fast for everyone. All right. So we have Egyptian mythology, but we also have European thought behind thinking and trying to figure out what consciousness is. But what is additionally important is to remember that the Greeks got a lot of their knowledge and ways of thinking and mythology, as well as doing things out of Egypt. Right? And they write about that, and also out of Africa. And so, just as you had the Egyptian priests, you also had Greek priests. And the Greek priests and the Egyptian priests, what did they do? They did the same thing. They used masks for rituals. The mask is going to come a little bit later. Okay? And so, why are these things important? So we have myth that turns into rituals, which enforces religion, which constitutes how we think about the world and where we place ourselves. Right? So those are some common themes that are going to come back. So you have Warren brothers. In this particular case, I think they're cousins, but you always have Warren brothers, right? Good brother, bad brother. You always have that duality between the two. Now, the mask that folks wear. If you think about what a ritual is, it is a religious performance, typically by a priest who wear masks. Right? And masks are very important because masks work two ways. They hide something, but they also reveal something at the same time. Right? So if we go back to the id, the ego, and the superego, right? The id is kind of new knowledge that may be brought about by like family ways of doing things. Right? The superego is something that's really down deep inside. Things that happened thousands of years ago that are somewhere in the back of our mind that pops up, that makes us think about things, kind of like our fear of snakes. Kind of like the reverence that we have for trees, right? Those are things that go down into these, right? But we also have Carl Jung's perspective, but we have the subconscious, the conscious, and the collective unconscious. And then a collective unconscious is the same thing. Things that go back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. We talked about fear of snake, but also fight or flight, right? You're scared, you don't know what to do. What do? You freeze. Why do you freeze? A couple of reasons. The first reason you freeze is that you may freeze because the enemy may not see you, right? One of the other reasons why people freeze is because inside your body, it's ticking and talking about things and getting your body ready to do a couple of things, either to run away or to fight, right? That's what the fight or flight syndrome is. So some folks, when they're about to take a test and something pops up in their mind, what happens? Well, it's just a piece of paper. Why would you be afraid of just a piece of paper in a test? Well, it's not just a piece of paper. It is a threat. And what happens when you perceive the test as a threat, you go into your fight or flight and you freeze. right? So that's part of the collective unconscious, right? So those are the things that play the role. With it, we're going back to rituals, right? If you think about rituals, something that's very similar to a ritual is a play. How many of you have ever been to a play? Right? You've seen Greek tragedies, right? What is very interesting in Greek tragedies, they wear masks. And oftentimes in the Greek tragedies, the mask represents the audience, right? It represents the collective unconscious. It represents the people, right? Because back in the day, in the Greeks, when they were first doing things, they didn't have big set changes. Sometimes they didn't have enough actors. So they would wear a mask, and if they were wearing that mask, you could tell what character that actor was playing by the masks. Same thing, right? So masks are very important. And psychologists call the mask you wear your psyche, which is your persona, and it's what you present to the rest of the world, right? There's some things that make up who you are, but when you adopt a mask or your persona, that's what you present to the rest of the world. So a better way of thinking about this, on your first date, you might be a little bit nicer than you normally are at other times, right? Well, that's your persona, that's the mask you're wearing, right? It plays a big role in your psyche, right? But if you think about plays and think about dramas, right? You've heard of drama, but when you think of drama, what's one of the things you think about? You think about the two masks, comedy and tragedy. So these masks are replete throughout places around the world. Right? So you have that as well. But in most cultures, a couple of things happen. You have the death of a king, right? You have the death of a father, right? And that starts off the beginning of a journey. So you've got the mask, the death of a father. This is the mask. You also have the Killmonger mask, right? So it's interesting that the ways historical and cultural stories are presented is in the form of rituals. The connection and similarities between the rituals and plays are so intertwined, it is difficult to tell the difference in both ancient Africa and in Greece. The play is a religious performance and vice versa. Across the earth, worship begets ritual. Rituals are explained through myths. Myths are then performed and performances become theater. Some researchers say that humans have a ludic gene, or a natural mimetic impulse that instinctively causes us to pretend in order to understand complex ideas. So we've all heard that play is important, and our imagination is part of the play. And when we're accessing our imagination, we're accessing our collective unconscious and our unconscious. So we'll talk a little bit about, at the top, a little bit about your racial consciousness, finding out who you are. Moving along to talking about racial consciousness. How important is it for young black males to have two superheroes that are in the media? First one, President Obama. Second one is Black Panther. So for the first time that I can remember, young black males had a character that they can put on and run out of the house with Hollywood. First time. How many of you have seen white males wear a Black Panther mask and costume? That's something that's completely new. So not only do black males have a new hero, right? Now there are some white males who have a hero that they've never had access to before. I don't know what that means. I think it's pretty damn cool.
Thanks for joining us at the Institute of African American Males. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe.